Sunday. It's August 15th. It's 10:11 a.m. or so. And on this Sunday, I would like to talk about abilities. So let's talk abilities in the astral plane. And I know that there are those of you who are simply curious about what's possible out there, what a person who's projecting can do when they're out there. And there are those that may be just beginning to explore and are curious about some of the things that you might be able to do. So what I'm going to do is I will break this down. I will go first into the things I believe are basic to everybody. The most basic skills that projectors have, many of those skills being, I would say, instinctive. And then I'm going to go into some of the specific things I've been able to do. I believe that there are things that we share, that there are abilities that we share when we're out there, but then there are abilities that may be specific to us as beings. So I will talk about the ones that are specific to me. Then I will talk a bit about the beyond body and some of the things that I am just beginning to discover. The beyond body is such a new thing for me, so there's a lot to discover from the beyond body. But first, let's get into the general abilities of a person who is astral projecting. And let's begin with one of the more obvious ones, walking through solid objects, which is really, really cool. I think one of the cooler things about being able to go through a solid object is being able to feel the material that it's made of. I remember when I was younger, when I was just really beginning to get used to astral projection, one of the things I would do, because I was still learning and still a bit afraid, is instead of taking my entire body out, instead of completely separating from my body, I would stretch my arm out, extend it until my hand was touching the carpet, and then I would push my fingers through the carpet and the floor. And it was such a very, very strange feeling. But in a way, I guess it was kind of like maybe, on a day that you were going to go swimming, maybe testing the water with your toe, kind of to see how cold it is, kind of thing. I don't know. So I used to do that when I was little, but that is one of the things when we astral project, one of the general things that we're able to do. And I know that some people have said that they've tried to go through solid objects and they kind of bounce back. And it's one of those things where you just, I think, have to relax and not think too much into it. I mean, in the 3D world, we're not used to going through solid objects, so it could be difficult, and our minds could interfere with that, thinking, well, there's no way you can do that. So it's one of those things that takes practice. The other ability that I believe that we all share when we project out there is the ability to fly, which is an ability that is so incredible to me. I remember when I was little, I used to do lucid dreaming, and I didn't know the name of it when I was a little kid. This was right before, around 8 or 9 years old, this was right before I began to project. And I remember there was one time in the lucid dream where I realized that I was in a dream, and I decided I wanted to be Superman. So, and that was back in the day when they were, Superman would use telephone booths to change. And I remember running towards a telephone booth and opening my shirt up and hearing the dramatic music and going in and then transforming and then flying. And I could still hear that music. So flight has always been something that I've been fascinated with. And when I astral project and I fly, it is such an amazing, amazing feeling to fly. I can remember times when I was young where I would fly, because I grew up partially in the Bay Area, and I would fly over the ocean there. Anyone who's ever lived in the Bay Area knows that there are a lot of really beautiful places where the ocean is, the beach, things like that. And I used to fly, and I remember I would dive bomb like a I don't know, an old style fighter jet or something. I would dive bomb, and then I would come right up really, really quickly. I would pull up into the air, and it was just such a blast. It was so much fun. I've talked about flight and other videos, and while it's fun for me, I don't believe that flight is a very practical way if you want to visit someplace specific. I've kind of talked about this before, but one of the things I bring up is next time you're on a plane, look down and randomly, after, I don't know, a few hours or whatever it is, look down and tell me where you are specifically. And that's the problem of being able to fly someplace, because we're not used to navigating from the air. And that brings me to the third ability here, which is traveling with the power of thought, which is, to me, if you want to actually find someplace, that is the thing to do. Now, this was my first video on my channel that I did a few years ago, because I thought it was such an important subject and one thing that is essential. I can remember one of the first times traveling with the power of thought, I wanted to go to a place that was, very peaceful, almost heaven-like. And I remember thinking of that place and just focusing it. I didn't know exactly where that place was, but I just wanted to go to a place that was like that. And I remember how in my apartment, everything began to curve around, like it curved, like the scene went from sort of normal looking to curving almost into like a tunnel in a way. And then I was able to see my goal, or the point I needed to go to, through that tunnel. And everything else started to become blurry. And the only thing that stayed in focus was the point where I would be arriving to. And I just started moving. I don't want to say moving, guys. I want to say rushing toward that point. It's I would say a very fast-paced way to move. You move at an incredible speed. I mean, I can't really define it for you, but that rushing sensation as you're coming up to that point is incredible. And once you reach there, you're there, and then you walk around. And I remember walking around and hanging out in this area. But using the power of thought, you can focus on someone or something. The only thing I would caution you about with this is that when you use this, number one, you should be disciplined in being able to focus on a single thought and not allow your mind to wander into other things, because if you do that, you could kind of go off in another direction. So you want to be focused on where you want to go, and you want to keep that thought in there until you get to that point. Once you get there, you're good to go. But that's one of the things that I would caution you about with moving or traveling with the power of thought. It is, to me, the way that I go if I want to go somewhere specific. So those are the three things. Now, I'm going to get into something that is specific for me, and I would encourage those of you who are just beginning to project to experiment and see about the things that are specific for you. Now, if you want to find those things out, you might want to contact your guides, or you might just want to go inside yourself and really think about things. Maybe just go by instinct. Try different things and see what works for you. So for me, it's always been my hand. So the thing about my hand is it's always been sensitive when I've been out there on the astral plane. If another being has touched my hand, there's been a sense of pain sometimes. It's been the only time I've felt a sort of sense of pain, but just a high sensitivity level with my hand. And on one occasion, I remember I was in this really dark area and I raised my hand into the air. And this was all, again, on instinct. And my hand began to glow. It emitted this golden glow, and the area was lit up. So it was an amazing experience. And the other thing that happened with my hand once, and this is a video that I made that I talked about with, where I projected to this place and I had this sense that there were two groups of people that were chasing me in this place. One group was coming from one side, the other group was coming from the other side down this hallway, and I felt like I was trapped. So I simply backed into a wall, and I actually ended up going through the wall, and I just waited for them to go by, maybe hoping that they wouldn't notice that I moved through the wall to hide from them. And then a young lady came through the wall, and I backed up. I was like, oh gosh, what's she gonna do? And the young lady looked at me and just said, would you heal me? And I realized that my hand was something, I guess, that could heal. And she approached me, and I believe I healed her. But and I didn't even really think about it. I was like, well, why would a spirit being need to be healed? But I guess there are things out there. I guess we think of healing for things that are physical ailments, physical injuries, but I suppose there are things that need to be healed spiritually as well. Something that I didn't think about at the time, but so it was interesting. And so that is one of the main things that I've discovered in the astral plane that I'm able to do. And again, there may be things that you discover on your own, abilities that you discover that you have that are specific to you. And the only way I think you can really find this out is by experimentation when you're out there. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the beyond body and some of the things that I've noticed. And these are things that I've talked about in probably the last, I would think that within the last several months. Things like in places that feel more like physical universes, being able to fly, which has been amazing. And the other thing is displaying at times super strength in some of these parallel realities. I talked about the incident where I came out of a house and I could overhear these kids talking about something like, well, there's one of them there. And this kid walked out with a wrench and threw the wrench at me, and I caught it, and it was steel, and I bent it like it was rubber, and then I threw it on the ground, and the kids backed off. So super strength, flight, and I'm still discovering the things that are in the beyond body. But again, it's going to be through experimentation, just seeing what feels right when I'm out there. Anyway, I've talked about some of the abilities here. I'm going to end the video at this point. But if you can think of some things maybe that I missed, or if you have had incidents when you've been out there, things that have happened to you, I'd love to hear about it. Put them in the comments. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.